Hey, here we go. Video number one, the first one right here. We're cooking some St. Louis ribs, all right? And we're gonna cook them on a Weber Kettle. The reason why I decided to go this route, video number one, because first off, ribs are a passion for me. Whether it be baby backs, St. Louis, spares, or whatever, okay? I just love them, all right? And I picked the St. Louis rack of ribs. Well, for one thing, it's what we cook here at the restaurant every day, and I just grabbed this one out of the restaurant stock. It's an all-natural prairie fresh rib, well marbled, great looking stuff right here, right? One thing I like about it, since it sits along the sternum of the pig, it sits right there. That's where it's trimmed from the spares, okay? So you got your spares coming down right here. The spares come down right here, and it wraps around, and you got your baby backs back there. We're not cooking baby backs today. But part of what I like about it is, if you look at this marbling on here, that comes from the belly. This rack of ribs right here, this still has a little belly meat on it. Looks like me and this rib have something in common. But it's a good looking rack of ribs, and I'm gonna show you how to prep it. We're gonna build a rub for it. We're gonna make a sauce. I'm gonna show you a wet option later on, but I'm also show you how to actually finish it dry as well, okay? Let's get to it. So what I've got here is, like, you see it's pretty square already, right out the pack, all right? You flip it over, typically there's a membrane on the back. Well, this has already been pulled. I can show you maybe at a later date, you know, how to pull a membrane. I could quickly tell you right now that I like to go 3 bones in, stick your finger under it, no tools, no gadgets. Stick your finger on it, pull it up a little bit, right? And just rip it off. Get yourself a handful, all right? So while I have this face over, I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, all right? There's still a little bit of this membrane still on there. I'm gonna pull this off real quick. There's a tiny bit left. Let's get that out of here, okay? I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. I'm gonna take a little bit out. I like fat, but we don't need all this. I mean, that's gonna hinder some of the rub coverage, right? We don't really need all of that on there. Let's take some of this stuff off. Kind of shave this down a little bit too, you know? Now, if I was cooking on, say, a drum or something with more direct heat directly under the grill, I might leave some of that on. I mean, that kind of protects the rib a little bit as well. Let's get a little bit more of this off of here. And also what I'm gonna do is, just because I'm real big on straightening things out, let's square this thing up just a little, just a hair. All right, let's get that up. All right, now let me show you something real quick. See what I'm doing here? I'm pressing down, okay? And this for you competition guys, this is a little trigger here. Pressing down, squeeze things out, and I'm gonna run my knife down here. Look at that. Pull all this out. All right, I'm gonna take care of all this right here. Nice, clean, even rack of ribs. Let's take this off real fast. Good. Let's do the same to the front. All right, I'll take this off too. I'm just building a pretty rack right here. Okay. Secondly, the other thing is, this full rack is not going to fit comfortably on that Weber Kettle, so we're going to have to do some modifications here, all right? One thing we have to do is probably have to take a bone or two off. All right, let's take some of these off right here. All right, we're going to square this up. Let's take that off, okay? Don't throw it away, save it. You know, smoke it on the Weber, smoke it on something else, or just save it and put it in your beans later on, or greens, or mac and cheese. No, not mac and cheese, that just doesn't sound right. Just save it for whatever. Let's flip it over, let's clean up this other side, okay? So far it looks pretty good. Let's take care of this right here. Get that off of there. Now I'm gonna clean this off a little bit. Because that stuff, they just kind of won't render too much and it just kind of gets kind of a little slimy. That could stay on. And let's take this off. All right. Let's take that off right there. And take some of the slimy stuff off. Here you go. Look at that. Nice, even St. Louis rack of rib. One of the things too, and this is another little tip I'm gonna show you guys. You see me doing this, right? See how that meat pops up in between? I'm doing it for a reason. One, it gives you a thicker bite, and two, it's gonna help out with something later on. You'll see later on what that does. Okay, now let's build a rub. I'll give you guys a recipe for one. It's a little bit on the sweeter side. It's great on ribs, it's great on pork, it's great on like a tenderloin, all kind of stuff like that. We're gonna start with some basic ingredients, things you guys have in your pantry at home. All right. First ingredient is dried brown sugar. Yes, it's dried. Okay, I've got 3 tablespoons here. You can actually make this at home, or you can buy it at the store. The reason why I like it is you can actually sift it. It still has the same sweetness as regular brown sugar, but you can actually sift it when you make a rub. And by making it, you can actually put it in the oven in a pan, sheet pan, I think it's like 180, 200 degrees, and break it up with a fork and then pulse it either in a food processor or like a blender or like a spice grinder. Eventually you have dry brown sugar. So you got 3 tablespoons of dry brown sugar. Next, you have 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, a tablespoon of kosher salt, a tablespoon of paprika, or paprika, depends on wherever you're from. Got a half a tablespoon of granulated onion, half of a tablespoon of granulated garlic, a teaspoon of chili powder, and a teaspoon of mustard powder. All right. So you could either do this in a Ziploc bag, you could do it in a bowl with a whisk, or if you have a Tupperware type container, shake it up. Boom, look at that. That's enough for about 1 rack, 2 racks, something like that. It makes about a cup. So I'm gonna pour it into this shaker, okay? That's a shaker you can get from pretty much any restaurant supply place. You could actually buy some, buy one online. I think Amazon might even have them. All right. So now we got the rub built. Next thing we do is add a little slather. I like mustard. You could always add olive oil. Sometimes you don't have to add anything. These ribs are kind of sweat a little bit. But look, let's just go with a light little coat of mustard over the top right here. All right. I'm gonna hit it with some rub. Now watch what I do here. I like to hook my finger in there, right? I'm gonna fan it back and forth. See that? Real quick. All right, pat it down if you like. You don't have to. Let it sit. Let's flip it over. You get some of the rub on the side right here. Get some mustard over the top now. So make sure it's even all the way across. No globs or anything like that. Put a little more rub over the top of that. Now I can go heavy on this because it's not an overly salty rub. You know, it works out great. Okay. And there we go. Next thing you do is you actually want to let it sweat. Let it sit out on the counter, let it sit outside. You want it to sweat a little bit. You want that moisture to come out and actually kind of make almost a wet appeal, a wet look to it. It's going to have bind the rub on these ribs. Well, that actually didn't take that long. It's hot in here in New Orleans right now, and that took maybe 5 minutes or so. Things look like they sweat. You see how the moisture came out a little bit? These things are actually really wet looking. Okay. Now, one thing you can do here, you can add one more light dusting of rub, just a little bit. You know, don't go too crazy. Add a light dusting. I'm about to get these things on smoke, and they're about to go sing to that smoke. Speaking of singing, what rock group has 4 men that don't sing? Mount Rushmore. Let's get them to the smoker, to the grill. What I want to do is, see that grill's hot. I actually want to put the sternum side, or the brisket bone side, or let's just call it the thick side, facing the fire, all right? And you see how I'm squeezing them together? See how it's pushing that meat up again? Remember, that's real important. And again, later on, I'm going to show you why I'm doing that. I also add a little more charcoal here. We're going a little bit longer, slower burn on it. All right, it's not going to take much, just a little bit. All right, and then I'm going with some hickory and some cherry. I like a 2-to-1 ratio of cherry to hickory. Okay, just pop those in there. Some of that good clean smoke. See, I've got a good fire going in there right now. Let's close it up. Not too worried about this thermometer being over there. I don't care what that temperature says. I just know that this damper open, wide open, and this thing down roughly, that first little hole where we talked about earlier, it's gonna hum around 250, 275, and we're gonna leave it alone for about an hour, and then we'll come back, we're gonna spray it. We're gonna keep it wet, because this is actually fast moving dry heat. A lot of dry heat passing over these things, okay? You wanna keep keep the top of it moist, all right? And while we got this open, we're gonna top off the charcoal, come back in an hour. It's been 2 hours now. I'm smoking here. It's really starting to take on that bark now. I'm gonna spray them one more time for the stretch run. It's got some great color on it now. It's getting there. So, all right, well, it's been 30 minutes. Let's pull them off. Let's get ready to wrap them. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually grab these here, and then this is gonna be pretty important, okay? While they still have a little shine to them, I'm gonna actually add more rub. For me, it's another layer, okay? And I keep compounding these layers on top of each other because during the wrap process, it will wash off, and that's something that I want to kind of slow that down a little bit. I want to keep adding more flavor to it. So for me, I wrap meat side down, okay? The bottom, it hasn't started tearing up or separating on us too much. I mean, it's not too bad. I could add a little to the back, have to. Now this is actually really important. This is one of my tips right here, okay? When I'm talking about wrapping, I like doing this. I like having the bones facing out, facing away from me, okay? Having the sternum or the brisket bones or what's called the fat in the wrap facing me, okay? And what I want to do here is I want to wrap this. I want to go all the way to the end of the bones. Go over. Do this, flatten it. It's got to be really tight, okay? Pull it to you. Flatten it. I want all the air out of there. I want this very tight. And I'm going to fold it up right here. Press down, fold it, press down, okay? There's a reason why I have these bones facing a certain way. It's just something that I like. And you'll see later on when it comes to checking the ribs, because that's probably the most important part of this whole process is checking for doneness. But right now we actually have a nice packet, and this is actually going to go right back on the smoker, just like this. Back on. We'll start checking in about 45 minutes or so. Just let it go. All right, guys, the ribs got to be getting close to being done. So before we go check them, let's put together a rib glaze. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add about a 1/4 cup of a hot pepper jelly. Like I said, you don't have to use a hot pepper jelly. You could use any kind of jelly, preserve. You could use a honey. You could use any kind of syrup, anything to kind of add a fruitiness or a sweetness to whatever the glaze you're putting together. Today, I'm just in the mood for something a little extra sweet and spicy. About a 1/4 cup of water, because we're actually going to have to thin that out. All right? Doesn't look the most appetizing right now, but it will in a minute. So we're going to mix this together. In fact, we're going to get this on a grill first and start breaking down that jelly. It's not quite there yet, but it will be in just a second. Let's pull these off for a second. Okay, so what I like to do is, and this goes back to when I was showing you how to wrap it. The reason why I like this flap over the top is because I'm not letting a whole lot of heat out just by pulling this off, and I want to peek at these ribs. See how they're kind of pulling apart? You know, I've got a lot of separation, but the main way I check is this right here. It's a wiggle test. You see what I'm doing here? If I feel like I could easily pull these ribs apart without having to rip them, and then look, I could probably pull them apart while they're raw and really tough, but right now they still got a little tug to them, okay? See how that works? A little more tug, so they need a little more time on a grill. I'd say probably within 30 minutes they'll be done. So let's get these wrapped back up. Like I said, keep it all tight. Remember, go back to the beginning, airtight. Airtight. Let's get it back on the grill. Let's check this one last time. I believe these things are probably about done. Let's check them all on the grill. Oh, look at that. These things are done. Let's get them off. Sauce them up. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is open these things up, okay? On one side here, I want to drain all that liquid out of there. You definitely don't need that mess on this table or on the cutting board. Find your trash can. All your liquid out. Okay. This part here, we're going to sauce them back. Put this here. That's a little trick here. Grab it. Flip these guys over. Look at that. This is about the time. If I was doing a dry rib, okay, instead of saucing, I would hit it with a little more rub. Okay? We go across the rubber here and put it back on the smoker. Instead of going wet, I'm gonna put a little sauce on it. Glaze. We're gonna do this a couple times. Let's check the glazes. They've been on for about 30 minutes. Let's see where we're at. Oh, these things are beautiful. Look, it's tight. The sauce is tightened up everywhere. That hot lump charcoal right there is kind of really set it. Let's take it off and let's go cut them up. Well, ribs are off the grill. I guess it's time to eat, right? Look at these things. I mean, the sauce is set, great color, very tender. I mean, look, this video number one, definitely not rib number one. Let's cut them up. By the way, what I said earlier, twice, we're gonna come back to some at the end of the video. Okay, remember how pushing our ribs together? That gave me some cutting guidelines. See the little humps? It allows us to actually cut meat side up and not mess up our glaze. So look, let's get back to cutting. See that? Look. It goes right through. Last one. Let's put this guy right here. Oh, look at that. So, seen everybody else do it. I guess it's time to eat, right? Man, sauce my favorite nut. That right there make a puppy pull a freight train. That's good, man. It's got good smoke flavor. The sauce is real tight on it. It's good. It got sweet. That pepper jelly is giving a nice little kick. This thing's juicy. I'm gonna do it again. Still ain't far. Look at that. Well, I gotta say, video number 1's done. I had a great time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Just to recap what we've done today. We started with a rack of all natural St. Louis ribs. I gave you guys a rub recipe that you can use on all types of pork. And you can even use on other things like seafood and chicken and things like that as well. Rub them down, put them on the Weber, lit some lump charcoal, maintain it in that 250 to 275 range with a little cherry wood and some hickory wood. Spray them every hour. After about 2.5 hour longer wrap. All we did was just wrap it with more rub. Put them down, meat side down, until they were, remember, full tender, right? That's my opinion. I don't think it's a magic temperature, but full tender. We made a glaze. It's basically a 2-to-1 sauce. Whatever sweet sauce you want, it can be something maybe you make, you buy at the store, or something you buy online. I went with a half a cup of barbecue sauce, quarter cup of, I went with a hot pepper jelly. You guys can go with a regular fruit jelly or something along those lines. A little water to thin it. Heat it up, glaze them, put them back on for about 30 more minutes, and here we go. Again, I hope you guys really enjoyed it. And what am I supposed to say now? Yeah, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. Also, follow us on social media. Look up Central City Barbecue on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Google. Okay? You can follow me as well. Again, I really appreciate you guys. And look, I look forward to doing more of these. I'll see you next week.